Sometimes, life changes in the blink of an eye. Not because of a storm, or an accident, or even a betrayal. But because of a single sound. A ringing phone. One call can destroy. One call can save. And in the case of one man, a single phone call would expose lies, prejudice, and cruelty hidden behind polished walls. And bring justice in the most unexpected way. This is the phone call that changed everything. His name was Michael. A hard-working man in his early 40s. Dark skin, tired eyes, and a heart that carried both scars and hope. He wasn't rich, but he was respected. He worked as a night security guard at an office complex, pulling long shifts to provide for his teenage daughter, Alina. Michael's life was built on sacrifice. Ever since his wife passed away years earlier, he had been both father and mother, protector and provider. Every bill paid, every school uniform bought, it was all because of his long nights, standing alone under flickering streetlights. But what Michael didn't know was that prejudice was lurking in the shadows. And soon, one false accusation, sparked by envy and hate, would turn his world upside down. At the office complex where Michael worked, not everyone saw him with respect. There was Richard, a mid-level manager in his late 30s. Well-dressed, arrogant, and always eager to flaunt his power. Richard hated Michael. Not because Michael had wronged him, but because Michael carried himself with quiet dignity, the kind Richard couldn't stand. To Richard, Michael was just the guard. A man he believed was beneath him. So when small thefts began to occur in the building, missing supplies, misplaced electronics, Richard's suspicion immediately fell on Michael. No evidence. No proof. Just prejudice. Just the easy assumption that the poor black security guard must be guilty. It was a Friday night. Rain hammered against the glass doors of the complex. Michael was at his post, sipping lukewarm coffee, checking cameras like he always did. Meanwhile, Richard was inside, working late. Or at least, pretending to. Because that night, Richard had a plan. He needed a scapegoat. Someone to take the fall for the thefts he himself had been committing. And Michael was perfect. When the clock struck midnight, Richard left the building carrying a hidden laptop under his coat. He looked around, saw Michael at his post, and smirked. By the next morning, the accusation was made. The laptop's missing, Richard told the higher-ups. And the only one on duty last night was Michael. The trap was set. Michael was stunned when police arrived at his home the next day. His daughter Alina watched in horror as her father was questioned, his house searched. Neighbors whispered, their eyes sharp with judgment. "Sir," Michael pleaded, "I would never steal. I was working all night." But Richard had already planted seeds of doubt. And in a world quick to believe the worst about men like Michael, his word wasn't enough. He was suspended from his job. His reputation crumbled overnight. The man who had spent his life protecting others, now needed protection himself. But here's where fate intervened. Here's where everything changed. With a phone call. 3 days later, Michael sat at his kitchen table, bills piled high, despair heavy on his shoulders. His daughter tried to comfort him, but he could barely speak. Then, ring. The phone buzzed loudly against the table. Michael hesitated before answering. Hello. On the other end was Mrs. Hernandez, an elderly cleaning lady who worked at the same complex. Her voice was shaky but urgent. "Michael, I saw something. That night. I didn't say anything before, because I was scared of losing my job. But I can't stay quiet anymore." Michael's heart pounded. "What did you see?" And that's when the truth spilled out. She had seen Richard leaving the building. She had seen the laptop under his coat. She knew Michael was innocent. And she was willing to testify. Michael's grip on the phone tightened. His throat was dry, his voice barely above a whisper. You'll really tell them? You'll speak for me? Mrs. Hernandez exhaled heavily. Yes. I can't let you take the blame for what I saw. Richard did this. I know what I saw. And I'll stand by it. For the first time in days, Michael felt a spark of hope. But hope has a way of colliding with fear. Because men like Richard, they don't go down quietly. The next morning, Michael walked into the office building with Mrs. Hernandez by his side. Whispers rippled through the halls. Eyes followed him, some curious, some judgmental, some waiting to see if the guard would finally be proven guilty. Inside the conference room sat Richard, polished as always, his suit crisp, his smirk barely contained. To him, this was already over. But when Mrs. Hernandez stepped forward, clearing her throat, Richard's confidence flickered for just a moment. She spoke slowly, nervously, but truthfully. I was working late that night. I saw Richard leaving. He had a laptop under his coat. Michael never left his post. He didn't do this. Gasps filled the room. Richard's jaw tightened, but he quickly forced a laugh. This is ridiculous. She's old, confused. Probably saw wrong. You're really going to believe a cleaning lady over me? But Michael's supervisor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Funny you'd say that, Richard, because we decided to check the security cameras. The room went cold. Richard's face drained of color. Because on that screen, clear as day, was footage of him slipping the laptop under his coat. The silence was deafening. Richard stammered, scrambling for excuses. This is a mistake. Someone doctored the footage. You can't. But no one believed him anymore. Michael was cleared. His suspension lifted. The company issued a formal apology. Some shook his hand, others avoided eye contact, ashamed of how quickly they'd judged him. But Richard, he was escorted out of the building, his career crumbling like sand slipping through his fingers. Justice, it seemed, had been served. Or so Michael thought. Because that night, his phone rang again. Unknown number. Michael hesitated, then answered. Hello. Static. Then, a low voice. You think this is over? Michael froze. Who is this? The line crackled. The voice grew colder. Richard isn't the only one who wanted you gone. Watch your back. Click. The call ended. Michael sat in silence, phone trembling in his hand. Justice had been served. But somewhere in the shadows, a darker game was still being played. And Michael had just become a piece on the board. Sometimes, the truth comes to light in the most unexpected ways: a camera, a witness, a phone call. But as Michael learned, justice is rarely the end of the story. Because where there is envy, where there is hate, and where there is power, there are always more lies waiting to be uncovered. So remember this. One phone call can save a life, but another can destroy it. This was the phone call that changed everything.